to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the Feds, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today we have a very special guest, Anunnaki Ancient Aliens researcher Glenn Bogue. And Glenn has been with us several times on our shows, but he's returning after a long hiatus where he was doing research for his book 5 in the Book of Isis series. And today we're going to talk about his research. We've got a lot of talking points and questions that we've gathered, but we're going to talk about the ancient gods of Sumerian, Greek, Roman origins, and they were in other cultures, and we're going to compare them with the biblical and other historical characters and see how they correlate with the stories of the Anunnaki. Did the gods leave? Did they die off? Did they return? Who are these gods? And what's behind the stories of the historical Zeus, Jesus, Thoth, Ninmah, Mary Magdalene, Isis, Osiris, Horus, and many other figures of history. Dr. Lessin, are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Hi, what would you like to say?
We're going to be looking a little bit at the phenomenon known as conflation, where you characters tend to get merged. It's like in terms of that Americans are familiar with. If we had Abraham Lincoln cut down the cherry tree and said to his dad, "I did it, I can't tell a lie." Well, for those who do know American history, if anyone still does, that was the tale told of George Washington, not Abraham Lincoln. And you'll see that the gods of old get all mixed up according to whoever's telling the tale. And Glenn is helping us unscramble the conflation so we get down to the nitty-gritty of who these characters were. And so we're really looking forward to your program, Glenn.
Welcome back to the show, Glenn. How are you? Are you there? Thank you.
I am here, and I'm well, and I'm fired up.
And you're what?
I'm fired up.
Okay, tell us more. What's going on? What's been going on?
Well, I really want to stress to the audience my surprise, I guess, at the speed at which the veil is now coming down on all of this smokescreen that has been created by the Catholic Church. I want the audience to know that I am a Catholic. I was a Catholic for 40 years until this work took another direction on me and began to go behind the, what I would say, the smoke screen between the Vatican. The Vatican controls, the Vatican Bank controls, of course, the Bank of England, and a lot of the university materials that are allowed to be taught come out of that dual connection. And so that grip that they've had on the lessons of history is now being loosened at a very quick rate. I'm both a lawyer and a master's degree in history, and I use those two trainings to go back into the past. By some fabulous miracle, on Easter Saturday of 1997, smoke came to the tree in our front lawn, and when the smoke dissipated, there was a 6-foot statue of a woman carved into that tree. And I found out 2 or 3 months later, it is an exact replica of the woman who appeared at Fatima at the end of the First World War. And being a master's degree, my master's was in 20th century Europe, particularly the warfares of the 20th century. And I was shocked to see that the woman that had appeared there for 6 months in Portugal, she accurately predicted the next 70 years or 90 years of history of Europe. And so this was quite a great confirmation that she knew what she was talking about. I had no idea what was going to happen next, who this person was who appeared there, and I've spent the last 17 years piecing together. It's an image that you use to piece together bridges that were burned on purpose or destroyed on purpose. And as Dr. Lesson said, this mixing of myths on purpose or by just sheer ignorance has now been being stripped away, and we're getting a very good look at who came here and why they came here and the different names they used. And I have now come across a book here in Toronto that is an alternate text, an alternate support to Zecharia Sitchin's Iraqi tablets. This is a book called The Secrets of the Temple of Isis. It's by a high priestess in Australia named Ishbel. And the story that she is telling is from texts or stone tablets or glyphs that are in ancient Egypt, not in ancient Sumer. And she says they are scientifically dated to 6000 BC. But the thing is, she's telling the same story that Sitchin translated.
Right, and this is the Anunnaki story that's all over the internet. We're talking about Planet X, we're talking about Nibiru, and its possible return, and so that's one aspect of the research is what's going on in the skies. Is Nibiru going to return? Are we going to have Earth changes or not? But Dr. Lesson and I and Glenn, we like to go through the historical information about the Anunnaki and who these characters are, because they're basically the characters behind those in the Bible, correct?
Yes, and so the third part of the leg of the research came to me Friday through a person I met at George Norrie, the Coast to Coast convention that was here 3 years ago in Toronto. And I was the first in line to meet George Norrie after the show. And behind me was a young lady she was a Polish girl, but she was born in Paris, etc. And I turned around and talked to this young lady. There was electricity flying out of my hands. I've been a general contractor, builder for 27 years before I started this research, so I'm a bricks and mortar kind of guy. I'm not an airy-fairy person. But when you put your finger in an electrical socket or touch the stove cable, you know there's some current running through you. And talking to this young lady, that current was coming so hard through my body, her magnetic field must have been filling the entire foyer where we were standing. And I'm throwing the energy off my hands in the air, trying to get rid of it while trying to communicate with this young lady. She claimed to be from the star system Pleiades, and I said, fine. And we became friends for the next several years. Well, she called me last week and said she met a fellow here in Toronto, just north, about 2 hours north, right near where Shania Twain was first discovered. And we were supposed to meet in the tavern, actually, where she was discovered. And so about 2 hours north of Toronto. And we had a session on Friday afternoon, a 3-hour taped session, me interviewing him. And now this fellow that I've never met before is also repeating the story from his travels. He's been all over the world, and he's repeating the story. And so the upshot of the whole thing is that the light beings are here. They are now re-energizing the grid around the Earth the way it was. They tried to re-energize it back in the days of Lemuria, and now they're back again to re-energize it and change the frequency from war. And he used the term hate. And if you listen to books like Conversations with God, they're talking about fear and love being the only two emotions. But I would disagree with that. I think that we're born with love. Some people wander into fear. But hate is what he was saying. Hate is an emotion brought here foreign to the planet, and he mentioned the lizards and the lizard race that came, of which George Bush and Queen Elizabeth are descendants in that field. And so
these are the lizards in your cosmology. Are the lizards the Anunnaki, or are they separate species?
Separate. He didn't give a timeline. We covered so much ground. We covered 23. He covered 23 different topics seamlessly. He didn't bat an eyelash. He didn't halt. He claims to be the son of Ptah, who was Rata.
And Ptah is Rata. So explain to
Ptah. Well, Ptah is the mythological character which many feel was Enki. And this is where I began. This picked up much of my research that I was done with this woman of the tree image. The woman of the tree is the woman of the DNA. And some years later, I stumbled across Sitchin's work and realized that the woman of the tree was Ninmah, Ninharsag or Ninmah, who fashioned the first Adam. And Durga Mara, Virgin Mary, Durga Mara is Damkina, who birthed the Eve. And so once I began to put together the four gods of Sumer, and then realized the four gods of Egypt, and then come into Jerusalem, you begin to get a very coherent story that we're just changing names. And this is what this gentleman said on Friday. He said it was at the Tower of Babel where the lizards did their damnedest work. Because once they change the languages, everything is fractured in history. And
so
most are
let me stop you there. So you're saying the Tower of Babel was not an Anunnaki?
Yes, the Tower of Babel. What happened was they were building the tower to launch the craft, and human beings were being taught this by Enki and his offspring, where they're teaching this technology to the human beings. And the other set of gods, the Lording God, went in and said, let us go down there and scramble the language. If we allow them to keep going, they're going to be like us, which means able to get off the planet, travel the cosmos, etc. And so to slow them down, they went down and scrambled the languages. And so, as Dr. Lesson said, this is where we get confused by the multiple different names for Enki throughout history, and then multiple different names for Ninmah. And the Catholic Church has really done a number on the psyche, and lately the finger's pointing at the Jesuit order of this going and infiltrating educational systems, and from birth, from the cradle up, those first 7 years are critical, and they just keep pounding this message home of who Jesus Christos was and who Mary the Magdalene. Well, I'm a Greek scholar. These are not names. These are royal titles. And so Mary the Magdalene means she got married in Jerusalem, and she is the Great One, Ninmah. And Jerusalem's original name is Ariel. And so, of course, Disney's mermaid, Little Mermaid, was named Ariel. So does that mean that Disney knew? Well, that's a bit more conjecture than I like to go into. But the audience will recognize the name Ariel from the Little Mermaid. Well, Ariel, as the original name for Jerusalem, means she will come there dressed as a bride. And Enki was preparing Jerusalem for thousands of years to marry Ninmah, because she had to marry either El or she had to marry Enki. But remember, her marriage was forbidden because she had Ninurta out of wedlock.
So let's slow this down with it for our listeners, because they're not totally familiar with all the characters in the play. So how does Enki, Ninmah, and Enlil, or you're calling Enlil El? Case, who are they in the Bible? How do they translate to the Bible that most people are familiar with?
Well, El, of course, appears as the God of Moses. And when Abraham, who is the prophet and father of all three main religions, he's the father of the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews. They all point to that one source. Of course, they're all killing each other today. either outright or behind the scenes. But the common root is Abraham, who came from ancient Iraq. He came from Tigris Euphrates. And his father, Taraz, Abraham's father, we found out 2 years ago, worshipped the Anunnaki. And so what El did was take Abraham away from his father, took him way into Jerusalem, because what was happening was Enki was planning to marry the Black Madonna. Now, these three that came from Nibiru, they are all half siblings, and in their kingship rules, they have to marry the half sister. It's a more complicated one to do now, but so here's the sister with the two half brothers, the two princes, if you will, from their planet. And so El is the god of Moses, and he's in there trying to get Moses, god of Moses, but also the god of Abraham. And he's getting Abraham in there first around 2000 BC to foul up these nuptials. And then when that doesn't work out, he gets Moses to leave from Egypt and head into Jerusalem. The focus being, again, this sacred marriage, which is going to take place. Enki's planning the whole time to marry Ninmah, who he loved since his youth. And so those gods went from Sumer as Enki, Ninmah, the Ankina, and El. You see them appear in Egypt, and a masterful job was done in all these different stories of Horus and Osiris. The key is Osiris was the black, and Isis was the black, and those two are not supposed to marry, but they're lovers because Isis was rather enamored by El, the military commander.
What do you mean by they were the black?
Their symbols were the Black Madonna. Isis is the Black Madonna. Osiris was always known as the Black, and his name was blackened. Because when they had a child out of wedlock back on their planet, Ninurta, when they had Ninurta out of wedlock, King Anu, their father, said, "That's it. You're never to marry."
But that's not referring to the color of their skin. That's saying that their name is blackened because they dissipate their father, correct? Is that
very good? Very good. That's why I love you, Jan. It's a very good point because they keep looking for example, they keep looking for the Queen of Sheba to come out of Ethiopia, and they keep looking in Ethiopia for the Ark of the Covenant, a black-skinned girl. Because the Black Madonna was her history was refound by the Knights Templar. We're getting a bit ahead in the story, but the Knights Templar in 1107 found this genealogy, and that's when the black-faced Madonnas began to appear in southern France. But it just refers back to the name being blackened. El did marry, but the daughter, he was so disgraced by the daughter, by Ninmah, that she was always to be the Black Madonna. So this battle centers on Jerusalem, and so Abraham goes there and doesn't quite slow Enki down because Enki appears there as Melchizedek. Melchizedek had blue eyes, a long flowing mane, skin of alabaster, and he was known as the King of Righteousness. And he approaches Abraham, he gives him secret knowledge. Now, we don't know what that is exactly, but he gives him secret knowledge and kind of brings him over to the beings of light, away from the beings of dark, if you will. So that's Abraham done. Then Moses is grabbed out of around 1300 BC. He's taken out of Egypt and brought in to Jerusalem. He doesn't make it, of course. Jacob makes it, and he is killed in the mountains. Moses. His brother Aaron is killed in the mountains, and Aaron's two sons are killed. This is not El's not a character to fool around with. He wants that marriage stopped.
Let me ask you about Moses. Was Moses Akhenaten, and was Moses an Anunnaki, a conehead? What was the story? There's a lot of controversy over Moses and who he was. I think Moses, wherever he came from, they say he came out of the bulrushes from a different parentage, was adopted into the Egyptian family. I think that's probably most likely what happened. But I believe he is Akhenaten, yes, because Akhenaten's wife was Nefertiti, and Akhenaten's nickname was Mose, M-O-S-E was his nickname. And he's the one who both Akhenaten and Moses are the one that starts this business of one God. The mono God begins with Moses.
and not the multiple godhead, not the multiple godhead of Sumer, which was Enki, Ninmah, and Enki's wife Dankina, alongside of El. So El wants his own show to be run here. He's here to get the gold, and he's running the show. And whatever Enki's doing with his girlfriend, he's not too happy about, and with this marriage going on in Jerusalem. So that sets the stage for Moses' Godhead, and it's hard for him because Jews would say, well, Glenn, you can't be maligning Moses as God. And I said, look, he's also the God of the Catholic Church. But Jesus Christ says at John 8:44, you Jews can't hear me because your father, the father of Abraham, was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to Genesis, where you look at the Gospel of Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. And Genesis 1:26, it says, we made Adam and Eve equal. And then in Genesis 2, the story changes to this lording God, who's a kind of a rogue God, who comes in, and instead of making Eve equal, he's making animals. That didn't go too well. He's making birds to be friends. Well, that didn't go too well. So on the third go, allegedly he yanks a rib out of Adam and makes Eve and makes her subservient. So then this begins the whole backbiting, which goes back to the Garden of Eden. And here's the critical part of my book 5 that I found out, that the term that's in the Garden of Eden, we now know, National Geographic has proven, in 2006 they used DNA from saliva from women all over the world, and all of them had the marker for Ethiopia, 200,000 BC, back to a single woman. I was in the audience when Spencer Wells, he's the scientist that did the work at National Geographic, he was lecturing in Philadelphia. I'm there in the front row, and the man actually said, we all go back to one woman, but of course it's not an Eve. And my hand shot up, of course, and I said, well, you know, sir, it sure sounds like Eve. Mm-hmm. And this is the whole split that the scholars are not allowed. They're not allowed to go into the connection of the Sumerian texts and the Bible, putting two halves of a whole story back together. When we do that, we begin to see the whole course of history play out.
Sasha, are you still there?
I'm still here, Janet.
Okay. You have anything you want to, questions or anything you want to add? Because I want to slow this down a little for our audience so they get what we're trying to say here. What would you like to interject at this point?
Well, just it's just a fascinating account, and I think we have a lot to learn, and I want to hear more.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're all getting it. Okay, so
let's do a little recap. So now we've got Enki coming into Egypt, and the four of them are there. And here's another key to the story: that what happens there is that Osiris sleeps with Enki's wife, which is Nephthys or Nut. There's only four of them. There's Osiris, and there's Isis, and there's Set Enoch, and there's Nephthys or Nut. Osiris sleeps with, this happens on their planet quite a bit apparently, and of course Enki gets upset. And the way they settle these things, they get naked, like the Greeks did, and they get knives, and they go after the male member. And away they went. And in the legend, which is accurate, Set Enoch, Enki, cuts off the penis of Osiris and kills him, cuts him into 15 pieces, 14 plus the penis, 15 pieces. And of course, Osiris, that's on a Friday he's killed, and Ninmah, Isis, runs around, the bulrushes wherever they are, gets all the pieces back together except the penis she never found, resurrects Osiris on the Sunday. So he's killed on a Friday, he's resurrected on a Sunday, but then Isis does a very strange thing. She leaves with his assailant. She leaves Egypt with Set Enoch. And Set Enoch, Set Hen, Satan. This is where the term Satan comes from. Osiris is so angry, he's lost his penis now. It's upsetting. And now they're leaving. He's leaving with his lover. And this is where the war really took off between Enki and El. And Osiris is lording over not only Egypt, he's lording over Jerusalem. And this is where...
I want to ask you a question. Is Osiris Enlil, El?
El, yes. Enlil, El. I call him El for short because El's how the Jews and Christians recognize the name for Moses. They don't recognize Enlil, but they do recognize El. So,
Enlil is Osiris.
Is the god is Osiris? Yes, and he's lording. Okay. He's not only lording over Egypt, he's also lording over Jerusalem, because he's guarding that place from this wedding happening. And then later on, the Jews are a very minor number of people in Jerusalem at the time. When he changes his name to Yahweh, when he brings Moses in there and changes his name, disguises himself as Yahweh, YHWH, and appears as the God of Moses. And then he's always offering land, and he's always offering genealogy, that your children will sit on the kingships. And this is really what the guy said on Friday very clearly. When they lowered the kingships down, instead of Pharaoh to kings, when they got into the kingships, that's when the wars really took off. So this is what he's doing in there in Jerusalem. And so Enki goes in there, and he appears as a great pharaoh. And Enki appears in Jerusalem first as Pharaoh Pharaoh Susimes the First, who's known in our Bible as Jesse. And Jesse only gets a little bit of lip service, but Jesse had 7 children, and of course his shepherd son, weakling, whoever he was, David, finally, he offered 6 sons, and they're no good. So Jesse gets his 7th son, David, and David becomes the next king after Saul. Well, that's the folklore story. Jesse is a pharaoh. He is from Thebes, and he sires David, and then he marries the daughter of David, and becomes Solomon. And Solomon's Egyptian name is Sheshonk. So we have Susimes the First, Jesse, one's in Arabic, and one's in Hebrew, and so a Hebrew derivative. So you've got Jesse or Susimes the First, depends on which language you're in, and then you've got Susimes, his son the second, which is David, DVD or David, and then the son-in-law, he marries the daughter. Enki marries the daughter and becomes Sheshonk, and Sheshonk's name in English or Hebrew is Solomon. King Solomon, because in the last chapter of the Bible, in Revelations 22:16, the voice says, "I was the father, Jesse, and I was the son of David." And it's David's children. It's really Sheshonk's children. It's really Enki's children that go in. Solomon had 1,000. He had 700 wives and 300 girlfriends. He has 1,000 bloodlines. Enki's putting his sperm into every woman that's moving around the place. He's creating 1,000 bloodlines while he's there. And the main bloodline goes into Germany, and it joins up with his other bloodline, Enki's other bloodlines, the Sicambrian Franks. And that Sicambrian Franks, in the line of David, become the Merovingian kings of France. So that's one arm of the story.
Okay, let me slow this down a little bit. So King Solomon has the mines of South Africa, or the mines. Where are the mines? He has these famous mines.
The mines are in South Africa. Yeah.
They're the mines that Enki had to begin with. He was given the South African mines. Same person.
This is why I love you, Jen, because El was given the command to come to the earth and get the gold, and Enki's had enough. He doesn't want to share the kingship anymore. El's the lord of the earth, of the landmass, and Enki's the lord of the waters. Enki's had enough of the split lordship. He was here first. I'm going to get the gold. And so it's Solomon, Enki, who is arranging the gold to come from South Africa and from Peru. Because we know now that there are stones in Peru that carry the symbol of Solomon. There's a boat found in the Viola Valley in Peru with Solomon's symbol, the 6-star symbols on the boat. And also there's a rock there that says we left from the Red Sea. And it tells how many boats they were, how many soldiers they had, sailors they had, etc. So Solomon, Enki, has this whole thing hooked up now to marry Ninmah in Jerusalem. And he's got the gold coming from South Africa. And the one who's the Queen of Sheba, who's bringing the gold, is his wife Damkina. She's the Queen of 7. Sheba means 7. She's Queen of the 7th planet. because she birthed Eve.
Dankina is the queen of Sheba, and Ninmah birthed Adam, or the Adam.
Yeah,
right?
she birthed the Adam. I think she appears as what's called a Maka Tamar. She appears as Maka Tamar. She might have married David even at one point. Ninmah. It's hard to tell them what exactly what happened, but they're all there in Jerusalem. The point is they're bringing the gold from South Africa. Tellinger proved that the mines are there at 100,000 BC, and they're bringing the gold from Peru, and they're bringing it into Jerusalem, into the Vatican, what will become the Vatican stronghold of the Mediterranean. But at this point, it's Jerusalem, and of course, bringing it in, and they're shipping it off to either Mars or the Moon, and back to Nibiru.
All right, so you're saying that Ninmah, so this marrying stuff, so they can marry hundreds of people, I guess.
That's correct. Remember, they had concubines. They had to marry the half sister on their planet. So, but having had to marry your half sister, you were allowed to have concubines. So Enki was the son of a concubine, of Anu's concubine, but El was the son of the half sister with Anu. So El was in the royal line first and foremost to be the next king until the civil war with King Alalu, and they decided Alalu's daughter Damkina, if she married one of Anu's sons, then that would be the next king. Of course, Enki went over and married Damkina and became the new heir apparent, and El was pushed off to the side. And that civil war, unfortunately, and this explains a lot of what's going on with this hate today, hate, because these beings brought their civil war onto a peaceful earth. And this is why you see the animals, they eat each other, etc. But it's a harmonious, if you're out in nature, it's just such a wonderful orchestration. And the one who doesn't fit in here are the human beings, or the Anunnaki, or this crazy civil war going on, and stripping down all the forests and, polluting the lakes and oceans. And we don't even belong here hardly, based on all this hate and self-whatever.
So how do we know what's us and what's them? Because we are they, we are their children. Are we really that different, or are we, you're saying that they brought their civil war here, but we've been used as pawns in the war all along. And you watch conduct. Yeah, you watch conduct. You always watch conduct. When the names get all fouled up, they use the same epithets for their names. They always often use the same epithet. The fish gods was one of the things we know them as, but some of them are from light and some of them are from the dark. And so the ones who are there, what Enki does is he leaves being Solomon. Solomon kind of like just dies and like wanders off somewhere, whereas David gets a huge funeral, blah blah blah. But what Enki did was he went into Thebes, got the Phoenicians, and sails them over to Greece. When he gets to Greece, in the picture on the Aquarian Radio website, there's the picture of Zeus there with the woman of the tree, which is known as Athena in Greece, and in between is the little hominid. And she has fish scales on her. That tells you she's not from here. And this is the couple. This is Enki and Ninmah. From the original Sumerian seal in Sitchin's work, you see them there as fish gods in that one cylinder seal they have. They have a cradle between them, and they have Enki on the left side, and they have Ninmah. She's just come from the sixth star, Mars, and she's just landed. They have a cradle between because they're going to make, in the cradle of civilization, Ethiopia, they're going to make the first Adam. That's why she's here. And then we see them as the fish gods in Isis and Osiris are pictured as fish gods, half amphibian, half human. And now in Greece, which is the father of civilization, is Greece. It's not Rome. It's not the Vatican. It is Greece, as far back as we have good texts for. And so here they are as Jesus Christos and Athena. Let me back up a little bit here, because I've got these images that I found on the internet, and it says Isis and Osiris. And but you're saying that Osiris was not Enki, it was Enlil, who we're calling El. Yeah. But when I'm looking at some of the figures, they have the snake. I thought the snake was the symbol for Enki, and so is the fish, the snake and the fish.
Well, now, Janet, this is why you're such a great hostess, because what happens in the first book I mentioned at the start of the show, this book I just got 10 days ago here in Toronto, from the secrets of the Isis temple, and it has these ancient texts, 6000 BC. And lo and behold, Dr. Lesson, in the opening chapter, she says, we were in Cairo when the eclipse occurred, and this huge mother of a ship comes over Cairo. And this landing pod comes down, and out of the landing pod comes the red men, who are hairless. They're beautiful, luminescence red. They have elongated skulls like Nefertiti, and they spend quite a bit of time in the water, Janet. So here's the source of these beings that were partly amphibian, and because the Dogon tribe of Africa described, the Dogon tribe knows how the Sirius A, B, and C go across our sky, although you can't see Sirius B or C with the naked eye. They knew they had stone tablet drawings. They were in Sitchin's book. The Dogon said, this guy over here on the water taught us. He spends half the night in that lake over there and comes up on land and teaches us. Well, the same stories all over the planet of these half serpentine, half human beings that spend time on land and they spend time in the water. So what Jesus Christos does when he leaves from Greece, from Dodona, he goes and swims up the River Jordan. He comes into Galilee first and swims up the River Jordan in the book of John and the book of Mark are the oldest Gospels. And here's this couple, Ninmah and Enki, appearing in the water with their son Nagashita, who is John the Baptist. And they're there for the baptism and the royal wedding, because the anointing that's going to occur is a sexual rite. It's an ancient Babylonian, Sumerian rite. Has to do with anointing. It's sexual. We'll get to that in a minute. But this is the opening of the chapters to the Gospels of John and Mark. And then 400 years later, in the founding of the Catholic Church in Nicaea, they add into Luke and Mark, which are Luke and Matthew are copies of Mark. They add in this wild story of an Immaculate Conception of baby Jesus, when the Immaculate Conception was, of course, Ninmah using genetics in a petri dish to marry the ovum of an ape with sperm from their planet. That's the Immaculate Conception story that was completely covered over.
Immaculate Conception.
The Immaculate Conception was a genetic experiment in Ethiopia in 200,000 BC. It was nothing to do with a child being born with no sperm. You know, Catholic Church, all men, no sperm, ever. So
let me go back to the depictions, because they have them. So are you saying that did Enki and Ninmah have feet? Were they able to sometimes? I mean, are these accurate depictions of creatures? And also, I mentioned the Nagas. I
think they have a suit. I think they either have a suit that they wear, or this is the reason they wear a toga, that their lower half has this tail on it that they can move through the water very quickly. This is why Jesus Enki, they're both known as the Son of Man, by the way. Enki, Enoch, and Jesus are both the Son of Man. Man meaning a heavenly being, because they're writing about themselves. We're the beast, and they're the man. So Son of Man is Anu, and here's his son, and he's the only begotten son because he's the son by concubine. That's where that term comes from. Anu sent his only begotten son, Enki, and now here he is. They can go on top of they can walk on the water because they have this fin behind them, or they have this wetsuit that they wear. And that propels them through the water very quickly.
What makes them reptilian? They have this fin, and they're confusing fish and mermaid and.
Well, no, I think from this meeting on Friday, what came clear from the meeting on Friday with this gentleman, Rata, who claims to be Enki's son, who built the Great Pyramid. They built the Great Pyramid together, and he's going through that description how they did it. But he speaks about a different group that came here to Lemuria, which is, and in Lemuria, this lizard, a reptilian invasion fleet came into our solar system, and that's one of the ones that came in and began to direct the energy of the sun, and they wanted to take over. He said the energy of the crystal of the earth, and he was treating the earth's crystal as being a living being. And his race, where they came from Pleiades, they came from the Pleiades quickly to defend the Earth from these lizards that came in. So we've got the Anunnaki already here trying to get the gold for their own planet. We've got the lizards show up here. They're trying to get at the female, because the human female, Ninmah, when she made her in a special way that she has a connection to the fifth dimension. And the lizards, being third dimension, are hitching a ride by raping the hell out of any female they can get on the Earth. This is what will explain all this crazy raping going on for the last 25,000 years. They're just trying to get their sperm in there, and they're not too good at it. They're not exactly chocolates and flowers kind of guys, you know. They're just brute force kind of guys. That's all they know. Nothing wrong with it, really. They just don't know any better. And they're just trying to get their sperm into the female and get up to the fifth dimension. And so there's a great explanation this guy was giving of all this hate that came on with the lizards that exists, he said, in the family that ended up being Queen Elizabeth and the Bushes. And they're tied to one family in China. And then Enki, I found out on Friday, is tied to another family, a dynasty in China.
So one of the dynasties in China, let's go to China connection. We have...
Okay, so let's start this, Jay, with the pit. Yep.
Fuzi and Ninmah. Who's Fuzi?
That's why I love you. I was going to say that. You're such a great hostess. So I can't find anybody. I can't find anybody who's Chinese, and there's lots of Chinese in Toronto here. I can't find anybody who knows these two characters who founded the Chinese civilization. That's how communism has really, I guess probably before Mao, I don't know, founded home a different message in the Chinese brain than the original text that said, and the Jesuits knew this, that Fuxi and Ninmah, which are Enki and Ninmah, that's who they are. If you look at the symbols on you put up on your website, that couple, part of the Phileas couple, is also over in Egypt. So how does it get from Egypt and it's also in Beijing? Because they're the same couple. They're the same couple.
Cultures.
And what had happened, Dr. Lesson, in 2009, the Chinese scientists said, no, we're superior. We're not from Ethiopia. And they went around China and they got saliva. And the buggers found the marker for Ethiopia in every Chinese sample they took, and they reported it. They said, we're wrong. National Geographic is right. We all have the marker for Ethiopia. So now we see proof that Fuxi and Ninmah is really Enki and Ninmah.
Right. Well, my confusion here, just bear with me 1 minute. You have Osiris. This is what you sent me. Isis and Osiris are depicted, and the one image that I found on the internet has the snakes, and it has Isis has the round ball with the horns on the side, and Ptah kind of has that long, kind of funny shaped hat that's tall and long. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, the hats are on top. Yeah, I have them in book 5. They're in my book 5, and the hats are on top.
Right. And they're calling that Isis and Osiris.
Because I don't think Osiris is not going to allow a statue of Enki to be standing. Look what the ISIS group is doing in Iraq right now. They're smashing all the old statues. So Osiris isn't the kind of guy. Osiris torched 140,000 Jews at once. He said, "You won't fight? I'll show you." He torched 140,000 Jews at one crack. This is not a fun guy.
Osiris,
so he's not
a fun guy.
Osiris, Enki, the god of Moses. Yeah. So he's not going to allow a statue of his lover Isis to be with Set Enoch, who's Satan. He's calling him Satan, and it's really Enki, the other lover. And so you're not going to find. If you look at the statues of Osiris as the serpent, he's angry. The images I have in my book, he's an angry man, being, whatever he is. He's angry, and so you're looking at Osiris. My point is that it's half man and half amphibian, and it appears in Egypt. It appears in Greece. In the image you have on your website that I gave you, Athena, it's half amphibian, and it appears in China. It also appears in Peru, because they come out of Lake Titicaca. This half brother sister. The names don't matter. It's very confusing in Peru. But there's always this white dude shows up with the half sister, and he did it in Mexico. the white dude come out of the water, this white guy with a beard and a cape, the Prince of Peace. He calls himself the Prince of Peace in Mexico and shows up there with Our Lady of Guadalupe. Our Lady of Guadalupe came later. But this white guy was showed up with half-sisters all over the planet in the ancient civilizations. That's why the Vatican has sent out all these explorers like Pizarro and Cortez to just knock the hell out of them and start burning the books. I mean, Al is angry, and he's not stopping. He's not stopping even today. The jig's up. My point of my story tonight is I'm so fired up from this Friday meeting. The jig is up, and the light beings are here. They're organized. There's a lot of them here in Toronto area, and they're ready, and they're unified, and it's changing quickly. So back into China, what the point about China now is that the central bank is now no longer in Washington. It was controlled by the Vatican into London, and then from London, it was in control of the Federal Reserve Bank from 1913 till now. But those days are over. That banking cartel has now been sent into Beijing, because the Chinese businessmen have no problem foreclosing on North America. They have no problem foreclosing. They have no scruples. They've got the money. They were paid apparently triple of what they cost the Washington politicians. They paid triple to the Beijing politicians, and they're ready to foreclose on their land all over the world. The global land debt now, according to Ellen Brown in Los Angeles, the lawyer that runs the Public Bank Institute, they calculated as being $2.5 quadrillion, the global debt. And so the way to 1,000 trillion, so it's 2,000 trillion is the global debt. But what this gentleman on Friday said, he carried a debt book, Dr. Lesson, from Vancouver to Beijing with 2 armed guards went with him. I don't know how he got in this scenario, but he did. And they were leafing through it as they went over. And it was Enki's trust fund, and it was in the even higher amount of quadrillions. So now we're seeing this global battle going on.
Enki owns more money than you say. He owns more.
He's got his trust fund and his boys around the world. No offense to the women in the audience, but his group around the world, and L coming from the Vatican Bank into the British Bank. Because with that BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, and the World Bank, they are remnants of the Knights Templar Bank that was stolen on Black Friday, October 13, 1307. They killed all the Knights Templars, and they took the International Bank. That's the British Bank. And the first time I've heard Friday that Enki was, he's a bright guy. He has his own banking system underneath. And between the two banking systems are these huge veins of gold. One's in China, and one's somewhere in the United States. And we were discussing this Friday, of course, and will the gold come back to be the currency? When in reality, the only thing that really matters, Dr. Leslie, is land and what you can grow on it and what you can use it for to beautify your vision. The gold veins are not exactly that beautiful, but the rolling hills, of Hawaii, I'm sure, I've been there once. It's magnificent. So all we have is land. And all we have is what we can grow on the land, which Monsanto has done a great job of taking over. So this is where the real battle going on. But I was so relieved to see that this gentleman was saying that Enki is right in there. He's in the mix with them and one step ahead, etc., with this alternate trust fund.
Right. So I had a source, a whistleblower that told me, and it was a woman, that she was flown first class down to South Africa to a high-level meeting and shown the mines that Enki still controls, which had all that gold. But of course, if he went from Africa over to South America and then he continued over to China, so he's still controlling the gold. If what you're saying,
and you just piece it together. You just pieced it together. I didn't make that path in my head because I'm still reeling from the 3 hours on Friday, but that gold vein in China, he's right in there. But there's a white pyramid there way up in the mountains, I know. I don't know what that's about, the white pyramid. But plus this huge gold vein that's there. And then they're fighting, of course, over American soil with this other gold vein, which has been known for about 100 years. This gold vein was discovered somewhere in central United States. And it's guarded by the military, so you can't get in there. But this whole central federal, that's the point. This is why he was saying this is why the Federal Reserve was put in place in 1913, and the First World War was created. That was a minor price to pay the First World War to get control of that gold in the United States. And then you have communism going into Russia and into China, and one of the main things there is communism to control the whole place. It's the only way you can't do it with democratically elected representatives. You can only do it with a communist and one guy in charge. And then Enki somehow behind the background with subterfuge. He always works by subterfuge. He's behind the scenes because he's not allowed on the land, don't forget. He's only allowed at water's edge. That's all he's allowed to do. And so,
now, is he going to still just be allowed to the water's edge even when it becomes the age of Aquarius?
We're in the age of Aquarius, in my calculation, on December 17th of 2013, we officially entered the age of Aquarius. I don't want to show why that is, but what is critical is that in 2000.
Why would he still be limited to the edge of the waters and not be able to take the whole?
Well, let me finish. In 2008, apparently, and this gentleman on Friday went right back into Ireland to Uisneach, which is the center mountain, right at the very geographical center of Ireland. And I was shocked that he went to Ireland because nobody else seems to focus on Ireland. And he's right in there in Ireland.
Where, they went after Atlantis sunk the core. That's like the purest race on the planet or something like that. The Sanskrit language came off of Atlantis, went to Ireland, to Sweden, into the Baltics, went to Nepal and Tibet, where there are towers with Swedish names on them, because the language is going that way from Sweden to Tibet, then goes down to Turkey, and then comes across from the east into Jerusalem. This is why they thought the wise men came from the east. Well, maybe they did, but the knowledge really comes from Ireland. And so in Ireland in 2008, a woman's in her hotel room, and on the wall appears a tableau written by Isis. And what she's saying is Enki and El and Anu and Nigashita are not letting go of the barrier we've just gone over into Aquarius to the age of women. They will not relinquish this run they've had from the age of the Ram to the age of Pisces to the age of women. They're using the black arts. And Janet, what she said was... Aquarius is supposed to be the age of women, you're saying?
Well, absolutely. And what she said is, I'm now releasing the white arts from the tunnels of Lemuria from 30,000 BC. I haven't caught up to what these white arts yet, in order to battle the males. The males. Enki has gone over to the dark side. Enki and El is what's being alleged on this tableau. But in the secret books of Isis, what she said was, right now, the energy of Isis and the energy of Amun-Ra, which I guess is Enki, is now in discord on the planet. And so the book of Secrets of Isis confirms this.
Slow down.
Yeah.
So Isis is Ninmah, you're saying?
Absolutely.
And so Isis, Ninmah and Enki are fighting again.
There's discord.
Canaan, they're in this. So what are they fighting again? Slow that down a little bit. What are they? Well,
the thing.
He said he's brought over to the dark side. Why is that? What happened?
Because the Pisces got split, and the whole hero lost in the age of Pisces was Jesus Christ. It was never ever Mary Magdalene, ever. So Jesus Christ, Enki, has had the whole glory run from zero. He was crucified on the cross, died on a Friday, and was raised on a Sunday in order to overtake Osiris, who was killed on a Friday and raised on a Sunday. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And that ended the age of El and began Pisces up into where we are today. Don't forget, Moses' sister, Miriam, asked Yahweh, what about me? I'm the sister. I parted the Red Sea. It was Miriam who parted the Red Sea. She was the goddess of the waters, not Moses. And she was picked aside,
so
and she was...
the woman's role, whatever she does, always gets overwritten by men.
And she's getting it again now. And at the age of Aquarius, now we're finally at the age of Aquarius, which is going to be the water bearer, which has to do with the anointing. It's a very sexual thing. And the woman is to be honored in the age of Aquarius, and we're just starting into it now. And the boys don't want to let it go. That was I didn't say it's true. I'm saying what the tableau said in 2008 in the hotel in Ireland.
So this is wow. Okay, we have like about 1 minute before the break. Sasha, and then we're going to come back. That was a fast first hour. Sasha, are you there?
I'm here, Janet.
Are you tracking this? What do you think of all this?
It's a very interesting variation on the materials I've been studying, and I don't want to pollute the continuity of the presentation with alternatives, because I think reality is an elephant and we grasp it from different directions, and I want to hear what Glenn's got to say.
All right, so we will continue with Glenn's concept. That's our music for the break. We'll be back in 5 minutes, everybody. Thank you very much.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Most guys freeze. That's just a dreaming cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain was a screw.
The large brain, the neurobiological system, is telling it to run. It needs to. Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is mere insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% supported radio. Supporting the danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Tune in Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Studio A to hear Tammy Adams share her knowledge of an unknown realm on Talking with Your Angel. Join Tammy as she uncovers hidden secrets about the spiritual world of angels, ghosts, and other entities that have been with us longer than we know. Tammy is a psychic, a teacher, spiritual coach, a leader in her field, and will be sharing her information and stories with you. So join us on Tuesdays at noon on Studio A. With Tammy's guidance, she'll find out who has been watching over you from the other side, and soon you will be talking with your angel.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia. at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am your host, Janet Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, and a very special guest, Glenn Bogue, Anunnaki, ancient aliens researcher. But before we get back to our show, I want to just remind everybody to please take a few minutes and go over to the donation button on freedomslips.com, and please donate whatever you can. $1, $5, $15, $20, $100, whatever you can spare will be greatly appreciated, and we do thank you very much for your donation. Your donation helps us bring you these shows and many more just like this. All right, we're back. Dr. Lesson, are you there?
Yes, I am. I think that Glenn Bogue here is giving us some really interesting perspectives. It seems that people that are following Sitchin have sort of deified Enki, as it were, but you have to realize that he was limited and limiting us, limiting our longevity by request, so that we didn't ever marshal enough strength to overthrow him, and also limiting our whole species by derogating women, and so that what we really need to realize is that we don't need these gods. We don't need any external anything. We have it all within us, and we are a fully intelligent, capable species, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and Enki's always been my hero, so it's kind of disconcerting to hear that he is still treating women as second-class citizens. However, you know, he always did kind of treat women as just reproductive, creatures that he could breed with, and even he and Ninmah had trouble rectifying that situation, and Ninmah was the one who was the co-creator of humanity. She bore the first human, and she never got credit for it. So, Glenn, back to you. I had a question. We've got like only another hour, and there's a lot of questions and talking points that you sent me. I want to go back to this man that you met yesterday who totally blew your mind, and I hope we do bring him on a future show. And you said that he claimed to be Ra-Ta, son of Ptah, Enki. So who was Ra-Ta? Who was this man? Was he reincarnated? Is he a walk-in? I mean, what's the story about this person you met? And
I don't know about being the walk-in. He said that he's here about 2 hours north of the city where Shania Twain was discovered. Deerhurst Inn is where he lives. And he has met in that area the Council of 12 from Atlantis that live here now. What I understood was in the land of On, the land of On, where I am, Ontario. The Great Library of Alexandria, when it was burned to the ground in 391 AD, they predicted it would be built in the land over the ocean in the land of On, which is where I am now. The only state or province in North America with On is where I am now in Ontario. And these beings are being born here in this southern region, which is very sacred First Nations land. It's very sacred native land where we are. And he's met 12 of them in Atlantis, including the king and queen, he claims, from Atlantis, who survived. They survived under Mount Shasta in the period between Lemuria, 30,000 BC. About 25,000 of them got into a safe haven in Mount Shasta, and then went over and founded the culture again. And it's the same couple that's here near his hometown here, 2 hours north. So he's met these people. I only know that he woke up one night with an angel at the foot of his bed, said, go and see your mother's friend who was in a car accident some years ago. You haven't seen her. He goes and sees her, and she says, I've been waiting for you. He says, well, I haven't seen you, Mrs. So-and-so, in so long. She goes, yeah, an angel was here, she said, at the foot of my bed this morning at 4 a.m. and told me you're to see my other friend over in Bancroft, Ontario, and that's where he met this king and queen, alleged to be, and I've met them yet, the king and queen of Atlantis here in the land of On. So it's a fantastic story, almost unbelievable, except that he hit 23 different topics to where we are tonight, and he did it seamlessly. So I think he's born here. He woke up like I did. I'm born in Toronto, lived in the States, but around age 40, 45, 50, my other friend who's here, who woke up at 45, she was born in a satanic cult. I mean, a real devil-worshipping cult. And she woke up at 45, and when I met her, you know what she said, Dr. Lesson? She said, I'm here from the big council of 12 in the sky, and I'm here to spank the Anunnaki for what they've done on this planet. And I'm going, well, let's have a go at it then. So if we're like the Anunnaki, then look what Enki and El, they're capable of what we're capable of, which is jealousy and pride and avarice and everything else. So they want to hang on to their power. He's had a great run, Enki, but now what I sense is happening is that the age of Aquarius is the age of the Stargate. The black hole, I mean, we know this on Friday, the black hole alignment is there through the sun. This is very Mayan principle. Through the black hole, through the sun, through the black hole to the white hole. And it used to be when you died, you saw the white light, the white hole, and you were sucked through your holographic being, because we're only hologram. We're only made of air, hydrogen and oxygen, and some dirt. So we're really a picture of ourselves. You get sucked back through the white hole to your real self. But now my sense is that after December of 2013, you can go out and you can come back. And I've heard that several times here in Toronto. You can now go and come back, go visit this guy took 50 women 50 parishioners in a spiritual church, and with one shot, they all left to see their dead, deceased relatives, and they all came back and plunked back in the pew, and they were all 50, he said, were stunned. They knew who they'd seen. They were all stunned. They had literally gone through the white hole, gone to see their deceased relatives, gone back to their real world, and then they were, of course, brought back here to where we are as holograms of our real self. So that's the principle of... This is just
a hologram, and these are our avatars, and we can really, our true nature is able to travel interdimensionally, and many of us are waking up to that reality. So is there one Rata, son of Ptah, Enki, or what I was getting is that the nature of souls is that they can be simultaneously in more than one place at one time, and they can actually go into more than one form. That's why you have all these people claiming that they're Marduk or Rata, or I've met an Nana, a Rishka gal.
You're the best, Janet. Janet, there's no hostess on the planet like you, because you have the sixth sense about things. In the book Secrets of Temple of Isis, and during the tape session on Friday, I had the book up 5 times and said, I just met this man, Mark. I just met Rata right now, and he's quoting from the book. And in the book, it says that what the Anunnaki could do was take souls and split them. And that's where you're getting these splittings of the souls. And they put the souls into clones, or they put them into human beings. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't really matter. They'll make clones of the lessons and run them over to Paris and stick souls in them and have a second doppelganger of the two of you running around the streets of Paris doing their work. And this is why you're getting this symbol.
Myself, so I can get 10 times as much done during the course of the day. So good. I'm glad to do this. I like what you're talking about, the Shasta, the Mount Shasta connection. I have had many whistleblowers and researchers zero in on Enki is in Shasta. There was one that comes from the underworld and the great, I'm going to call it a train, but it's like a tunnel system with the, it's a high-speed train. It's not really a train. It goes to Shasta and down to the underworld, and not the underworld. It's the Middle Earth, Inner Earth cities. So what were you saying about you have a topic? He
said his friends over here. Their name is Sadia and Tuni, and they were the kings and queens of Lemuria. He described how this lizard energy had come around the earth to encapsulate us and to really suck out the life of Gaia. There's a crystal at the core of the earth. Let's call it a crystal instead of a human being or a being. But they wanted to suck that energy out of the planet, and we would all, of course, die. And so they tried to shoot a ray up from a crystal laser off of Lemuria to break through the shell that was put around us. And, of course, it ricocheted back and smoked everybody on Lemuria. And they had to lower the island into the water to stop the suffering. But 25,000 got off that island and got into a Telos, T-E-L-O-S, he called it, in below Mount Shasta, the city of Telos. And then from there they went over to Atlantis and they started again. And then of course they went at it there with the dark side, who had nuclear technology, and then they fouled that up. And then of course they fouled it up in Sodom and Gomorrah. They used nuclear weapons, according to Sitchin, to foul that up. And so it caused the famine. The great famine that took the Jews into Egypt was the famine caused from the nuclear fallout. So that was the third time they've done it. And so ISIS is going, Ninmah's going like, boys, that's enough. It's enough.
Boys, you're never getting it straight. What's going on with you guys? ISIS is not in the power position in this reality at that point, because she's still the black, right? The black Madonna. How does she ever get her power back, or does she?
Well, she never really lost the power. She's always been a great biologist. She's always been a very smart being. It's hard to tell what the role of women really was on Nibiru. But Enki said himself, I can't do this task of turning the ape into human. I need my half-sister. So he said he couldn't do it, brought her here. I sense that she left the planet and was gone for a while when she was so smashed apart by El. After the Council of Nicaea, he buried her. And her history was not found for 600 years till Lance Templar found it under Temple Mount, under Solomon's Temple. They found the genealogy of Ninmah. And that's what the Templar used to blackmail the thrones of Europe to say, you're not the God appointed, Enki and Ninmah. They are the two that are appointing the gods around the planet. And so we then move into the art world, the sub-art world of the Middle Ages, and that's why I said in my book 5, Bellini's his name, that was on the History Channel, with the work of Michelangelo. And Michelangelo, his two teachers, they knew the ancient texts. They knew the story of Sumer and Enki and Ninmah. They knew it, and they put it in his artwork. Yeah.
Wasn't Michelangelo just an emanation of Enki? I mean, he was going around putting all the secret writings in there, just like he apparently was an artist when he did what was the other piece that you always talk about? I
always talk the Arnolfini portrait is 1434 is alleged to be the year of the Arnolfini portrait. And in there you see the man with the sallow face is the oldest picture we have of Jesus out of Turkey. So we spoke about Ireland, Sweden, into Nepal, Tibet, down to Turkey, and there's the earliest picture, according to the New York Times, of what Jesus looked like, Enki looked like, but with a hat on. And this is the hat you referred to when you see the serpentine bodies, and they always have that same stupid hat on their head. I don't know what it stands for, but it always appears in this artwork. But the work of the Arnolfini portrait is the first oil painting. It is picture perfect, and Da Vinci came closest to that. He wasn't the greatest artist of all time.
Da Vinci was the artist. I'm mixing up Michelangelo. Da Vinci was the artist that might have been Enki. That's what we're talking about.
That's what I think. That's what I think.
Even all the clues. Yes, sorry.
Leonardo was a enlightened. Michelangelo was like Prince, Mozart, a temperamental artist who didn't get along with anybody. They're two different characters.
I'm sorry, I mixed it up. I have a brain fart, but anyway.
One's the painter and one's the sculptor. But Michelangelo's this gentleman said on the History Channel that his two teachers of Michelangelo, they were dissecting bodies below their house next door, secretly, because the Vatican would put you to death for that. And the one scholar came on the show, or the female said, when you look at the Pieta from behind, it's the perfect human heart. But no one ever looks from behind. They always look from the front.
Right, yeah.
And the woman's face is so young, it has to be the Magdalene holding her fallen, not the Virgin Mother, who was, of course, much older. It's a young woman's face. It's the Magdalene holding her lover. In the Pieta in the Florence, he showed how Jesus' leg is slung over the lap of the woman who's holding him, meaning that's sexual intercourse they've had. So he's not doing that with his mother, I don't think. He's doing it with his lover, Damkina, Vergamara, his wife, or his new wife, Ninmah, the Magdalene. So that whole art period,
is Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary is Damkina because she bore Eve. Is that
I refer to her as Virga Mara. Mara, she's married. Mara, she comes from the sea, and Virga, number 7. And in Greek, it stands for the number 7. So she's the queen of the planet because she birthed to Eve, and Mary is the Magdalene, the great one, is the one that knew all, because she was the biologist that created the first Adam. Enki couldn't do it. That's why she's the Magdalene.
So
this
titles,
the royal titles.
Portrait, you're saying, is a self-portrait of Enki. He's got this funny hat that almost looks like a, I don't know, big
and it's now been renamed the double portrait because the Arnolfinis were dead by the time it was done. So it's not them anymore. So that's a double portrait, and he's holding the hand of the woman in green and gold, which is Mary Magdalene's colors, and she's holding up her gown as if to say, "Am I pregnant or not?" But he's holding up her hand to the camera, to the artist in the archway in front of them, and behind him, right in the middle, is a convex mirror, and that mirror stands for the portal that the Stargate we go through.
Stargate, right.
It's right in the middle of the paint, so it's the focal point. When you look in the mirror, Janet, then you're looking at the backs of this royal couple, and when you look in the mirror, when you look in the mirror, their hands are going forward toward the painter, and beside the painter is a woman in blue, and she's pregnant. And when their hands go forward because of the convex mirror, they're putting something in the womb of the woman in blue. And of course, they're putting the fertilized egg.
I have to enlarge it. That's so tiny. Do you have an enlargement of that somewhere? We need to get that.
I have it in my book. It's in my book 5 coming out. But the scholars are all around. The 4 top scholars were on BBC about a decade ago saying, "We've given up. We don't know what the heck this means." So I called one of them up and I said, "Look, I'll tell you what it is." And he goes, "No, it can't be that. It can't be Enki. You're crazy." And I said, "Well, you don't know. You said on BBC you don't know. So how do you know I'm wrong?" So
I know.
It's just hilarious.
Well, the character has a very long face, and the gods tend to have that long, like on Titan, they have the long face. So it kind of makes sense, just looking at it.
No, but if you look in the mirror in the convex mirror is the image of the artist that's facing them. That's what it is, right? And he's wearing a red hat. He's wearing a red hat. Sirius, and star system Sirius, and he's watery. He's known in the art world as the watery man, because when you go through the Stargate, it's a watery experience. Drunvalo Melchizedek said our magnetic field is crowned by a circle of water. And in my book 5, I show how, maybe 4, no, in the book 3, my sacred sex book, Isis's body, her arms go straight up. She's wearing a gown of stars, and her body is elongated. She's about 8 feet tall and very thin in this image that nobody ever figured out what it was. She's being pulled up and elongated and going through the Stargate to go home. So the whole thing was now in that one painting, the one Arnolfini double portrait, whatever you want to call it, in that one painting, you see everything's there. The birth of mankind by Vergamara, the royal wedding at Cana, because he's holding her hand up in a kind of a wedding kind of thing. She's wearing green and gold. She's pregnant with the Adam. The woman in blue is pregnant with the Eve. And Enki's going home to the Stargate as the watery man. It's all there. It doesn't miss a beat. There's more to the painting, but that's the main theme of the painting, which is 1434. Then you're in the period of Michelangelo, and he showed Moses with 2 horns in his head, the way that Isis has 2 horns in her head. the way that Our Lady of Guadalupe, Mexico, is standing on a crescent moon. The crescent moon are the two twin flame of the boat, of the celestial boat of Egypt. It's a wormhole image, and so these are the people who are supposed to be teaching us how to go through the Stargate and get out of here, and come out if we wish. But once we leave, there's no more gold. There's no more pum pum for Enki, and there's no more gold mining. We're now gods, the way Dr. Lesson is describing us, fully sentient beings who the female is capable of taking us into the fifth dimension and higher. And this is our birthright. This is our what we've sought the whole time from the Garden of Eden till now. Because in the Sistine Chapel that's on your on the website, the central panel of Sistine Chapel, you see Eve turning with her left hand and receiving the fruit. She's receiving the fruit from Enki. Ha-Nakash is the Jewish term. Ha, the shining one, is a noun. It's serpent, and the Jews always took it as being the wicked serpent who misled Eve. No, it's adjectival, and it is the shining one. And of course, Jesus Enki transfigured on the mountain. And when your protons turn to photons, as the woman on top in a sexual rite of anointing, her ejaculate is full of the 8 precious metals of the ocean, ocean fish, and wine. Those are the 2 foods that have the most concentration of 8 precious metals, which create the quantum experience in your brain. And so now she's capable of going through when you see the corona around your lover, she's beginning to transform into the transfiguration, and then boom, you're gone. And we are capable of doing that, and we're in the period to do it, and the energy's here to do it because the black hole is aligned with the white hole. And many people, I talked to my mini tramp guy, it's called a cellar sizer, David Hall. I told him what was happening because on the mini tramp, your cells go into tight pack state where they communicate. And he told me, Janet, he said, is this why my customers are calling me now after 3 months on the trampoline and very strange things are happening in the bedroom? And then, Dave, are you kidding me? He goes, no. So he didn't know about the tight pack of the cells. He just knew it really made the body ripped and cut. But that's in a book called Gut and Physiology, how to get the body into dry pack. So this is what's happening around the planet. And you two are, of course, very advanced in sacred sexual practices. But everybody else is kind of in kindergarten. They're all in kindergarten, kind of. But you guys have practiced this on purpose. So I tell people, if you want to drive to Miami Beach, you better know where Miami Beach is. So if you want to go through the Stargate, you've got to practice an intent to go through the Stargate with your lover. And it's happening spontaneously on the planet. People don't have anybody to talk to. They'll think you're nuts.
Right.
I've been through a magnetic field twice. I was in Toronto and Sweden at the same time. Went and came back.
You're bilocating?
Bilocated, yeah. Same moment. It was a very strange experience. Yeah. We were told that Ningishita was going to show us the Stargate right now, and we were researching. She was like you and me, like you, Janet, and Dr. Lesson. We were very close. We worked very well together. I know who she is in past life. I know who I'm in past life, and so we worked very closely together. And then she said, "We're going to be showing the Stargate right now." And actually, what happened was we were Skyping, and my camera shut off, so she couldn't see me. And she said, well, the Stargate, and I'm saying, well, you begin to get the Ormus molecule, the monatomic atom, by cunnilingus. So, I just gave it a lick, Dr. Lesson, and she said, what are you doing? And I looked and I said, you can feel that in Sweden? And she said, yes. So we said, so we've been shown, and I said, well, fine, I'll do it 5 times in the next 10 minutes. And Dr. Lesson, she got all 5 touches. She never missed.
Mm-hmm.
And just showing us the magnetic field, because the female is close, very tied to the magnetic field. Dominique, this girl I met at George Norrie, she had this huge magnetic field, and it's tied to the Earth magnetic field. And if the male, in the book called The Sacred Sex Cult of Isis and the Magdalene, it says that the male's not supposed to be erect in the first hour, and he then leaves his electrical impulse behind, the quick impulse, and he begins to enter her magnetic field energy source. And if you can just spend that hour and not be embarrassed, the erection he gets then is magnetic, and now you've really got something tied to the earth and ready to go. So the whole thing is just where we are right now on the cusp, and just why Enki is not pushing that agenda forward. Maybe Dr. Lesson can talk about that. But
well, I want to go back to what you were saying about, Enki and Ninmah kind of being broken up and, not in alignment anymore, because how are we going to do this unless we balance the yin-yang and the masculine and feminine come together? If Enki and Ninmah are the divine partnership, that has been our example throughout the ages, even though we weren't aware of it, was telling in our subconscious, and now you're saying that they're disconnected.
I think the light workers are here from Pleiades. I think through Pleiades star system, this man said on Friday, many, many, many souls are firing through the hole. And interestingly enough, your guest who has the starships around the sun.
Oh yes, Robert Evans Jr. Yes.
That from our experience together there, we were talking about that Friday. How these lizards went in to attack the sun. And I said, I'm on the show with the lessons, and this gentleman was saying that now the spaceships are appearing around the sun to protect it. Is this what they're protecting it from? He said, absolutely. They're assaulting the sun and the crystal in the center of the earth. They're sucking that energy. And now this galactic battle, he calls it the Federation of Star Trek. He calls it the Federation forces are here, and we're on the planet. And we're getting rid of the hatred, and the frequency is going to change, and these lizards are going to just dissolve, and the Illuminati bankers are just going to die. They're just going to start dying because they can't stand the frequency of love and the whole thing.
If I may, I'd like to suggest something that the listeners can actually do to bring Ninmah consciousness up. If you really look at the universe as a holographic universe, so that everything that is potentially reachable within us, or as Goethe said, nothing in the human condition is alien to any of us, then we all have, as archetypal centers of our subpersonalities, an inner patriarch, the conflated Enlil, Enki, the guy that takes charge and tries to run everything. And also, we have an inner woman, the inner Ninmah, the Sophia, wisdom within us. And it's in the tantric ritual that with a male man who is physically a male gives up his separate identity and allows himself to merge with the Sophia, with the Ninmah, in the woman that he's pleasuring, and bathes himself in her juices, her Amrita, that he actually has the possibility of transcending his totally male side and becoming centered. And that is the thing that Enki has kept us from, the longevity that would allow us to embrace all these different parts, particularly the feminine parts. And now it's the time to allow Sophia, her not to overwhelm the inner patriarch that wants us to survive and have ordered ways, but to make a centered blend, a fusion of these two aspects.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. It is true. It is true. But it's explaining so much, Dr. Weston. You're able to explain so much in a short period. It takes me longer. But what had happened to Enki, and as Janet said, he was revered for so long, and rightfully so, after saving the planet and building the pyramids, etc., involved with Ningi, etc., and perhaps Rata and whoever else helped build the things. But then something begins to take over when it's time to give in to the female. And we walked into the church of Remla Chateau with my researcher friend in Sweden. We were taken there to by the Black Madonna herself. And one statue we have there, we were taken to shown there, is the Virgin holding Adam in her left arm, and in her right hand is the male member. I made the Adams with my own hand. It's right there in a favorite famous church. It's in my book 5 in Spain. We were taken into France to the Church of Rennes Chateau of Mary Magdalene. When you walk in, you see Enki being baptized by Ningishita in the River Jordan. And now he's going to have to be monogamous to Ninmah. No more pum-pum on the side, boys. And the look on Jesus' Enki's face is one of utter horror. That now he's going to have to be monogamous. And everyone turns to the right and heads to the altar, because it's a side entry to the church you go in, and in the side wing is a statue of the baptism. But then you turn to the right to the altar where Mary Magdalene is, and not one commenter has looked to say that, look at the look on them. If he's being baptized, he'd be happy. He's got a horror. It's horror on his face. From this having to not give up.
He wasn't monogamous because he wasn't required to give up Damkina, so he still has two women. Yeah, 2 women, but no more concubines. No more running around like when he was Solomon. He had 1,000 women. He had 1,000 he was impregnating. Right. Okay. So you're saying that from that point on, he was just in a triad with Ninmah and Damkina.
I don't know if he stayed in the triad. Did he stay in the triad? We don't know. I don't think that he stayed in the triad. Maybe he didn't.
We don't know.
He tried to. He vowed to. I think he vowed to. And then because he wanted this. And when he wrote the Song of Solomon, when he wrote it, he said, "I'm going to marry her, the one that I've loved since my youth. She's dark but comely. She's the Black Madonna." And so he's going to marry her, and that's Solomon, and he sets up Jerusalem, and Ariel, the whole original name was to marry her, and then he marries her. And we all mean well when we get married, and then who knows what the hell happens after that?
Right, we don't know.
There's work to do. There's work to do.
In the last century, we have Mary has appeared as Guadalupe, what was that, in the 1800s, and then in the 1900s she was at Fatima. So Mary's still around. Is actually doing the
wait a minute. It's important. I think it's Ninmah. I think in 1830 in Paris she appeared. It's Ninmah, and she at Lourdes. At Lourdes, it's definitely Mary Magdalene Ninmah because her son was the springs of Lourdes. And then it was predicted in the parchments at Rennes-le-Château, France, it's predicted she'll appear at high noon. And she appears at high noon with the spaceship the silver disc covers the sun at Fatima. The colors are spinning all out of control. And there she appears, of course, with the miracle of the sun and predicts the whole course of 20th century Europe on October 13, 1917. And then she appears several more times through the 20th century. But look at the 20th century. It couldn't be any bloodier. More have died in one century than all of history combined. And that's the lizards in there. The lizard energy of the queen is in there full bore, fighting both Enki and El. And El's trying to hold on to his empire in the land. Enki's trying to hold on to his empire in the water. And the whole triad now has gone nutso. And that was predicted in 1917. You'll have another war. You won't learn now, boys? You have another one, World War II, worse. Then my Pope will come 70 years from now, John Paul II is what it was, and he'll consecrate Russia, and the Iron Curtain will fall, and that happened right on cue in 1989, and then you'll have a period of peace, and then all bets are off. And that's where we are now. Which way are we going to go? Are we going to go into the Stargate, honoring females, as Dr. Lesson's saying, is normal? Mm-hmm. Most women, what Thoth said was that women are living right now, they're up in the heart chakra, and the men are still down in the third chakra. The lizard men and the other Homo sapiens, they're going to have to take a teaching or a lesson from the female, because she knows what to do intuitively. Stupid's just trying to get the football game on. He's not paying attention.
Let me ask you a couple questions, Glenn.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, there's this photo that I found in the house, Queen Elizabeth, and it says, stolen from Isis, a crown. It has Isis, which we know is Ninmah.
Right.
What's the relationship between Ninmah and the current reigning Queen Elizabeth of England?
The Queen is the head of the lizard. She's head of the lizard tribe that came here from that invasion force. She's a lizard. David Icke is right. It's a lizard race. Diana referred to them as that. Princess Diana referred to them as that. Well, they have the shapeshift.
Why do they? They're
shapeshift.
And who's the Red Dragon? Who's the Red Dragon? Is this guy the Red Dragon?
The Red Dragon is who? Well, the Red Dragon of Revelation 12 is tried to swallow the offspring of the woman. The woman with the crown of 12 stars is Ninmah. and the red dragon appeared. And when you look at the three beasts of Revelation, the first beast came up onto the land, and that is El bringing the mercantile. He tried to dominate Enki's water with the mercantile laws, the commercial code of law of the water. Then he brought it up on the North American soil as a military courts, which are on our soil now, military courts. And so that's the first beast. The second beast worshipped the first beast and made us all bow down to a third beast. Second beast is the Catholic Church. The third beast of Revelation, which is never talked about, is a man run through with a sword and revived, and that's Enki. Only Jesus was run through with a sword and brought back to life when he was on that cross to imitate Osiris, killed on a Friday, raised on a Sunday. But the church made us worship a false image of the crucifix, and both the book of Proverbs and Isaiah both say, do not worship the crucifix. It's a false idol. It couldn't help itself in a fire, for crying out loud. Leave it alone. But that image was created by the Catholic Church. So those are the three beasts that follow the red dragon, the queen. And she has the Protestant faith, and she controls the Catholic faith because she's controlled by the Vatican. She bows down when she goes into the banking center of London. She bows down to the mayor because the mayor is then answering to the Pope, and he's running the show. And then so that's the red dragon. Then they apparently have this green dragon that's in China, and that's run by Enki. I suppose this is only as of Friday that I've heard of this green dragon. Now there's a third dragon, the white dragon, which I find very close to the white arts that Isis is. So maybe we have this triangle going on now with the white dragon of Ninmah versus the green dragon in China of Enki, and then we've got the red dragon in London. And then this is the triple war that we're looking at. Well, I sense that the whole thing's going to collapse. The central bank's going to collapse all over the world. And I think that the Six Nations, the First Nations of Canada, are you there?
We're still here.
I think that the land is going to go back to the power is going to go back to the original Aboriginals. The United Nations has called for the land to be returned to the Aboriginal peoples. It's called allodial rights, and you can never ever lose your land. And anybody who struggled against a bank on foreclosure knows this value, this principle, that the First Nations of North America could never lose their land. The Queen brought a system of laws down 1 inch from the land. But they can't foreclose in New Jersey, where I was living. The government cannot foreclose on my land for taxes. They'll harass you with the sheriff and put you in jail and drive you nuts until you abandon the land. But you have to abandon first. You cannot lose your allodial rights, ever. And I think that the First Nations groups, I'm trying to convince them in Toronto to use their monies they're about to get from the government and open up public banks.
Let those rings, those sounds take you deeper into the process.
So the public bank is really the answer to this whole stinking gold. The bank has to be owned by the people, not by a private bank coming out of London or Beijing. They're owned by the public banks. There's one in North Dakota. There's the only place there was one in North America. And it never goes into recession, and it's owned by the people. And that First Nations could put that on their reserve land now. They're free and separate from the Queen's government. So they can start the public banking system, and when everything collapses, you'll have your own currency. There's a lawyer here in Canada who's winning the constitutional right for a second currency for Canada. And I hope it's going to be a public currency, not a private central bank, which we have now. And it's going to go into Australia, apparently. Ireland now is moving for the public bank. And this is it's just moving so quickly, guys, right now, compared to even 12 months ago. The whole push of this whole religion thing collapsing and women going back into a dominant role in the public bank and end all this wars and beheadings and craziness.
We can't hear you, Janet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just took off my headphone. It was acting up. Go ahead, continue. I'm sorry, guys. My headphone isn't working very well.
Okay, we were just talking about the critical part being the central bank and the control of money. And so it has to be returned to the people. And the statutory courts eliminated and back to what are called true common law courts.
It's interesting that part of Jesus' rebellion was against the money changers way back when. And, in the same way as we could look at as having an inner patriarch and an inner Sophia, we also have an inner spiritual part, or John Lennon or Mario Savio, and that's the Jesus' crime. One of his main crimes was that he honored women. If you read the Gospels of Valentine, you see that he exalted Mary, and that's what really pissed everybody off at him.
Yes, and even letting the one brought forward for the stoning, and said, well, then let the first one. The one who's missing is, of course, the adulterer. The adulteress is there. The adulteress, he's probably holding some of the stones himself. Mm-hmm. And so he honest to stand up and let the first one throw the first rock. So the men discussed it with themselves, put the rocks down and leave, of course, and of course he's beginning to exalt women. So it's a great point that you're making, which he always do when Jesus when Jesus was King Solomon, he brought the woman of the tree. He brought Asherah into Jerusalem, and when he did that, they were both kicked out by El. Because here's the woman who fashioned the first Adam. There's more than one God here, he's saying to El. You're not the only one on the show running the show. Here she is, your half-sister, and she fashioned the first Adam for you. And you look it up. He brought in Asherah, and they were both chased out, and they next appear in Greece. About 400 years later, they appear in Greece. Go ahead.
Okay, you were having this conversation with this fellow, and you said he's tied it to a bigger money picture, which I understand to involve Saint Germain, who could be Enki, but could be wrong. So what is this connection to the Saint Germain, Enki and Saint Germain that you're... Well,
Saint Germain appeared for about 200 years in Europe, and the person who saw him gave best witness was Voltaire. And Voltaire said, whoever this guy is, he never gets any older. He speaks every language in the world perfectly. And he was then later in Russia, and he put St. Catherine the Great on the throne. So for 300 years, they keep seeing this guy running around, and Grandma saw him, and Great-Grandma saw him, and he's back now for more cocktails, and he's having a great time. The thing is, I met these monks in New York in '98 in Manhattan in a large convention of spiritual people, and these crazy monks showed up, about 10 of them, and they knew everything I knew. And I said, well, who's teaching you this? And they said, this gentleman here in the picture. Well, where is he? He's in Mount Shasta, California. And oddly enough, St. Germain was last seen in 1945 in Mount Shasta, California. So I kind of putting this together, the story that these monks have been taught by Enki, and here's Enki running around for 300 years, arranging the affairs of Europe, of the thrones, and battling El the whole way, and battling El's bank. And of course, Adam Weishaupt made the Illuminati in about 1868 or so, makes out of Bavaria the Illuminati, and the bankers start their assault. And it's really just a civil war between Enki as Saint Germain, and he's putting his people on the throne, and the Illuminati are controlling the money, so who cares who Enki puts on the throne? They're controlling all the finances through the Rothschilds in London. And this whole Napoleon's civil wars and battles are all just a war of money. The American Civil War was fought over taxes. It was fought over taxes in the American Civil War. Who's going to tax the cotton? That's what it was about.
Right.
It wasn't about anything else.
What is it, right in 13, you said Galactic Federation is the means of corrupting that, and you were told by monks from Mount Shasta, who work for Jesus, who is Buddha, who is Enki? Is that what you're making that connection? Jesus, Buddha, Enki, are all... They
said this man's a mix. They say he's a mixture of Jesus Christ and the Buddha, all in one man. His name is Buddha Maitreya. And I looked at that, I looked at the picture. He had reddish skin, which remember when we said the secrets of Isis was that when the spacecraft came over, out of the landing module came these beautiful men with red skin. And Sitchin was the one that said all the patriarchs were known to have red skin. King David was known to be red, which I always associate with being from Sirius. But maybe he did have a red hue, like the red men of North America. The Native Americans were red skin from Atlantis. So they had this royal red skin blood. And this gentleman in the picture that they showed me had red skin.
Uh-huh. So you're saying that the Anunnaki are red skin and not pink skin?
Somehow red, red. Well, what's confusing now is that Enki appears many times with skin of alabaster. Jesus and King and Melchizedek. Melchizedek's the king of righteousness. The key to my story in my book 4 is that when Jesus gets there to Jerusalem, they ask him, "Are you the king of righteousness?" Well, that's Melchizedek. Yeah, that's me. Are you the son of man, son of God? Yeah, well, son of man. He's Enki. Are you the Prince of Peace and the Son of God? Solomon. That's who Solomon was known as.
What is man? What's it, man? Does it have a different meaning? Like man is the original name of the Anunnaki, or Anu is name is man?
Yeah, when they wrote the Bible, so when they talk about man, they're talking about themselves from the Beru. The beasts are us, the creation, running around, trying to get some intelligence and do something, wise or smart. We're the beasts. They're the very advanced beings. They're the men. So Son of Man, which no Catholic has ever explained what that term means, the Son of Man. Enki and Jesus were both known as the Son of Man, the Son of Anu. And as I said before, the beloved, the only begotten.
Anunnaki is just the name of the ones who came here, because Anu means, it means the ones who originate from Anu, who came down from heaven to earth, from the Beru to earth. So that's the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Right. So then, what did they call themselves? Those who lived back on the Beru, right? They were called man, right? Is that the connection we're getting? And that's why both Enki and Jesus are the son of man, the son of Anu, who was on the Beru.
Yes. And then the phrase, I said, the only begotten son, begotten means of a certain species, and that would be, explain Enki, who was the one from the concubine. He was not royal blood. He was from the concubine.
So begotten, does it mean it means that Anu had sex with his concubine instead of Anu had sex with his wife?
Yeah. El was the son of the marriage to Ninmah.
Of marriage.
Yeah, Anu's married to his half sister, and the son is Enlil, who was. So who
was the mother of Ninmah? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't think Sitchin ever names the mother of Ninmah. It's another mother that was there, not the royal mother, I don't think. Another concubine that Anu was with.
Okay. And let me see what else in your. Then you're talking about the working stations on Mars and the Moon. What's going on Mars and the Moon?
But you're again intuitive, one step ahead of me. I was just thinking about that because we're talking about Mount Shasta, I guess, and something made me think of it. What this guy went through on Friday, he was going through the fact that he is in touch, like weekly or daily, with the forces that are around the sun, but they're also in behind the moon, and they're in Mars, behind Mars, and they are also, I think he said Uranus is where the other forces are. They're of the light. That create the forces. And we've talked before about the active, UFO bases on the dark side of the moon, where that spacecraft is that has the woman frozen in it. It looks like exactly like the Virgin of Guadalupe, who doesn't look Mexican to me. She looks alien to me. That's image we have of Virgin of Guadalupe with the swollen lips and the swollen eyes, exactly as that woman appears in that. And
there's a statue in YouTube that shows a statue they found on Mars of that looks just like the woman that's in the spaceship on the moon. The corpse that they found at Apollo 20 They kept doing the space program after 13 or 14 or whatever, 15, 16. They kept going, and it was the 20th one. Then on the moon, and they found the big ship on the far side of the moon, which has the corpse of the woman that you're describing.
Yes. And so this is part of the 23 things this gentleman went through that were all seemingly disconnected. Like a lot of my work, it seems to be disconnected, but when you start to tell the story of how it is, it just begins to fit together that really the light beings, and he did say that they're about to start making arrests in the banking system, and I've heard this about a year ago. The Pleiadians are all in place now to start arresting the people who are really driving us nuts with the central bank debt-driven economy. And so this whole thing is going to play out.
Are they going to try and kill them, or are they going to? Any further information?
I think it's arrest them to stop them from this incredible lunacy, because it's not really those people who are creating the problem. They are just lining their own pockets. What do you want to say about that? But it's the ones higher up where Enki is, with these huge, massive, and in the thousands of trillions of dollars are these massive trust funds. There was that one that was almost brought the economy down in 2008. It almost destroyed the world economy in New York. That one hedge fund was so big. But these are even bigger. And so we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg when we see even the biggest trust funds in New York of these hedge funds. There's much bigger play up there. It's all just numbers, right? There's no gold or anything. It's just a bunch of computer entries. And but it really has to do with the commercial law. The mercantile law was brought here. It was brought here by Enlil, and I forget the planet it came from. It was when Eve stood up to El and said, "I'm going to go with Hanakash, who's offering me wisdom. What do you got? You got nothing. You got nothing for me." But Enki is Hanakash, the shining one, is offering me knowledge and wisdom. And he gives it to her in the picture you have there at Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. It's a central picture, central panel from the Sistine Chapel, where he's putting something with left hand to left hand. He's giving the woman something in her feminine hand. He's giving her the apple. And the apple, in the text from Rennes-le-Château, in the French parchments, the last phrase is blue apples. And blue apples are always associated with the Stargate. So you can see Hanakash is giving her the knowledge in the fruit of the tree and the apple.
We just had a fellow on that was going on, he was talking about the entheogens in the Bible and how they used sacred oils, which actually opened up a psychic stargate of higher awareness, like the sacred medicines. And so the blueberries might have been, we use them in wine, but and the blue lotus, Janet. The blue lotus was the highest, reserved for the pharaohs only, which were Anunnaki. The pharaohs were Anunnaki. The kings were human, but the higher pharaohs, as I discussed tonight, Susine's the first, David his son, Susine's the second, and then Enki became Sheshonk, which means I have secret knowledge, by the way. And those pharaohs were Anunnaki, and they had the blue lotus reserved for themselves, which was the highest frequency. So number 19, who is not Nostradamus? Which is the role in this whole?
This gentleman said Enki. So your friend in Australia that was visited by Nostradamus, she was visited by Helen. Was that her name? Helen, the woman in Australia.
Helen from Australia. Yeah.
She was actually visited by Enki, not by Nostradamus. Was Enki, according to this gentleman on Friday.
Makes sense. Then what about someone like not Einstein, but Tesla? Tesla seems like an emanation of Enki. He's almost 7 feet tall, and he was a genius, and he got all this information. Anyway, I'm just reaching, but he just seems to be somehow connected to Enki's energy. I have one more question. He understands the matrix concept. This is your source last night that was telling you all this stuff. What about the matrix? What is that?
The matrix is the Stargate, is the white hole black hole. And the convex mirror in the Arnolfini portrait. It's a symbol of I guess the movie, which I haven't really seen, the Matrix movie. I always refer to it. They got Solomon on Friday, Rata was referring to the Matrix energies, and it's portrayed properly in the movie. However, you open up this energy field where you can go and come back. And once you go through the Stargate and learn how to come back, you're timeless. You've conquered death. You've conquered death. The other thing that was very interesting what Ra-Tah said, but as an aside, was that when he was Ra-Tah, he was killed and he was eaten. The lizards ate him. They were killed and eat as communion. And this is where the whole communion thing was brought in by the Catholic Church, not by Enki, but this business of eating, and he then went into the ritual of killing the children, which John DeCamp, the senator and lawyer in Nebraska, is right after Dick Cheney and Warren Buffett and Warren Buffett's wife for their involvement with the Queen and with the Jesuit order in stealing these children for ritual sacrifice. And this fellow Ra-Tah said, I went through it myself in Egypt after we built the pyramid. I was killed and eaten. And the lizards are hoping just to get the energy. This is just the animal kingdom.
To get the
eat his blood. Eat his blood and drink his blood to get that frequency, to get them out of the third dimension. Ra-Tah was very high. He's Enki's son. So he's very high vibrating individual. And they don't know any better. They don't know any better how to get it. They're not going to the women to get it. They're going to eat it. You know, they look down like chicken wings. That's all they know. They wouldn't know the Amrita. They wouldn't know the Amrita if you poured a glass of it to them and gave it to them. They wouldn't know.
We only have 2 minutes. What about the females taken aboard the ships and impregnated? What's going on there?
That was in the Temple book. That was in the Temple. Well, you're so good. That was in the Temple of Isis book, that they were taken up on the spaceships and then interbred. And Ra-Tah said the same thing. And I doubt he's read that book. That was one of his 23 points. He was talking about how the women were taken up and impregnated with foreign sperm, ET sperm. Creating the hybrids. Huh?
Today? That's what's going on with the abductions of women all over the planet?
That's more by the reptilian lizards trying to get their sperm into them. Yeah, that's why. That's why they're so odd about when they appear. They're just trying to get their sperm into it because it's happening. It's going to happen. Something huge is coming toward the Earth. That's the feeling that I get. The message I get. A crystal child in Vancouver was on a blog talking about all the people lined up to get on the planet now. Billions of people long to get on this planet, the waiting list. Something huge is coming toward the Earth.
We've got to wrap this up. We've got 1 minute. We're going to have to have back on another show to finish the rest of this. But what we're going to talk about how they can reach you. This was a fast 2 hours. Wow. How they can reach you in your new book. The books are called The Books of Isis at authorhouse.com. Book 5 is called Are We Being Lied To? It'll be out in about a month, but the first 4 books are on weight loss, health, sacred sex, and the origins of mankind and the Black Madonna. Where they came from is book 4. Okay, well that's the show.
It was delightful.
Next talk after the show, just a moment here. Thank you.
One more thing I'd like to say is beware of the proctological forces from Uranus.
All right. I'll things out loud.